18 minutes. That's how long Nia has been pinned under 3 tons of armored steel, her fingers raw and bleeding as she fights to keep a dead man breathing. The gravel digs into her back while she stares up at a silver device tucked against the car's frame, a shape that does not belong. This is a pressure plate bomb, wired to explode the second the engine turns over. But there's a bigger problem. A tiny, warm chip is glowing on the side of the casing. Someone is watching this bomb in real time. Someone is watching her. Nia doesn't have tools, so she uses her hands. She snaps the main wire, but the bomb fights back. A secondary timer triggers, and the circuitry begins to hum like a muscle, clenching before a strike. In a desperate move to buy seconds, she grabs 2 live wires and jams them together. Electricity screams through her body, locking her jaw shut so hard her teeth ache. She is the only thing standing between a massive explosion and the man walking toward the car, with a coffee in his hand. If she lets go, everyone dies. How did a simple gardener end up holding the life of a mafia boss in her bleeding palms? Nia is trapped under that car, and one spark will end it all. Before we find out if she can stop the timer, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which part of the world you're watching from. We've got a massive community of mystery fans here, so hit that subscribe button and join the squad so you never miss a twist. She has been under that car for 18 minutes. Her fingers are bleeding, and the man whose life she is holding together doesn't even know she exists. The gravel crunched under her boots at 4:58 a.m., 2 minutes early, the way it always was. Nia didn't do 5 o'clock. She did 4:58 because the world didn't wait, and neither did she. The estate sat behind 12-foot walls topped with invisible laser grids, 3 guard rotations, 42 security cameras, a man inside who had ordered executions the way other men ordered breakfast, and Nia was the one who trimmed his hedges. She pulled her gardening gloves on tight. The morning air was cold and sharp, biting at the skin of her wrists. The driveway stretched before her, black gravel, raked smooth every night by a machine that cost more than most people's cars. At the far end, under the single amber light that never turned off, sat the armored SUV, black, still, waiting. Nia didn't look at it. She never looked at it. But this morning, something stopped her. A drop. Small. Catching the amber light like a tiny dark mirror sitting on the gravel. Fresh. Wet. Synthetic. Oil didn't fall from that SUV. It was serviced every 48 hours by a team of 3 mechanics who treated it like a weapon, because it was one. That car had bulletproof panels, run-flat tires, and an engine that had been rebuilt twice for speed. Nothing leaked. Nothing dripped. Nia crouched, touched the drop with one finger, rubbed it between her thumb and forefinger, held it to the amber light. Synthetic base. Too clean, too uniform, not engine oil. Her chest went cold. She stood slowly. The estate was quiet. The guards on the north wall were mid-rotation. She knew their schedule better than they did. The kitchen light was off. No one was awake yet. No one except Nia and the silence and the amber light and the black SUV and whatever had just dripped onto that gravel. She looked at the car again. Properly this time. Then she looked at the ground beneath it. Something beneath the chassis caught the light. A shadow that wasn't supposed to be there. A shape. Metallic. Compact. Tucked tight against the undercarriage like it had been built to be invisible. Nia's father had run a body shop in Nairobi for 22 years. She had crawled under cars before she could read. She knew what belonged under a chassis, and she knew what didn't. That didn't belong. She didn't run. Running made noise. Noise woke people. Woken people made mistakes. And right now, the only person who could afford a mistake was already lying on cold gravel, sliding herself under 3 tons of armored steel, with her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The device was small, silver casing, wired directly into the ignition line, a pressure plate. She could see the trigger mechanism fused into the driver's seat mount, invisible from above. When Jae-hwan sat down, the weight would activate it. When the ignition turned, it would detonate. She had maybe 40 seconds before the kitchen light came on. Nia reached for the red wire. The wire was thin, thinner than it should have been for a device this size. Nia's fingers closed around it, and she felt the vibration, a faint, almost alive pulse running through the insulation. The timer was already counting. She just didn't know from when. She didn't cut it yet. Cutting without understanding was how people died under cars. Her father taught her that when she was 9, grease on her cheeks, rusted Honda Civic bleeding fuel above her head. Never pull what you don't know, he said. The car will tell you what it wants. Listen. So Nia listened. The red wire connected to the detonator. That much was obvious. But there was a second wire. Gray, almost invisible against the silver casing, running from the back of the device to a small chip she almost missed. She traced it with her fingertip. The chip was warm, active, transmitting. Someone was watching this bomb in real time. Her breath stopped. She forced it back, slow, controlled. If whoever was on the other end of that signal could see a live feed, they could see movement. They could see her. 20 feet away, a security camera pointed at the driveway. She hadn't moved into its line of sight. She had made sure of that. But the device itself, it could have its own lens, tiny, built into the casing. She couldn't check without moving closer, and moving closer meant exposure. Nia made a decision. She cut the red wire, not because it was safe, because it bought time. The device didn't detonate. The pressure plate stayed dormant, but the moment the wire snapped, a small red light on the chip flickered twice and went dark. The anti-tamper protocol had activated. She felt it before she saw it, a shift in the vibration, a tightening in the circuitry, like a muscle clenching before it strikes. The secondary timer had started. Nia didn't know how long she had. Could be minutes, could be seconds. She grabbed 2 exposed wires from the base of the device, one gray, one black, and pressed them together with her bare hands. The spark was immediate. Pain shot up her fingers and locked her jaw shut so hard her teeth ached. But the vibration slowed. The tightening stopped. She was holding it. For now. The gravel was cold beneath her back. Her gloves were gone. She had pulled them off to feel the wires properly, and now the raw skin of her palms was pressed against live circuitry. 2 wires locked between her. Fingers. The only thing standing between Jae-hwan's life and a blast that would level half this driveway. She could not move. She could not let go. She could not call out. So she waited. 4:58 became 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock crept toward 5:05. The kitchen light was still off. No one stirred. The estate stayed quiet in a way that felt wrong now, almost mocking. Above her, the amber light buzzed. Somewhere inside the house, a clock ticked. Nia's fingers were going numb. She pressed harder. At 5:12, the kitchen light came on. A warm yellow glow spilled across the gravel, cutting through the gray morning like a slow knife. Nia heard the back door open. Footsteps. A guard, not the kitchen staff. Heavy boots on stone. Unhurried. Routine. He would walk past the SUV. He always did. He would not look under it. He never did. Unless she made him. Nia's jaw tightened. She had one shot at this, one sound, one moment where the guard's rhythm broke and his eyes went where they were never supposed to go. She slammed her heel against the chassis. The sound cracked across the driveway like a gunshot. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then fast, the guard's boots hit the gravel at a run. "Who's there?" Nia didn't answer. She slammed again. The guard dropped low. She saw his face appear beneath the SUV, eyes wide, hand already reaching for the weapon at his hip. He saw her hands, saw the device, saw the wires locked between her bleeding fingers. His face changed. "Don't move," he said, and then he ran. Jae-hwan did not rush. That was the first thing Nia noticed when the back door opened again, 3 minutes after the guard disappeared into the house. No running footsteps, no shouting, just the slow, deliberate click of expensive shoes on stone, steady as a heartbeat, moving toward the SUV like the morning had not just changed. He was a tall man, lean, the kind of lean that came from discipline, not from missing meals. He wore a black coat over a gray shirt, no tie, collar open. A coffee cup in his right hand, steam curling up into the cold air. His face was the kind of calm that didn't belong on someone who had just been told there was a bomb under his car. 2 guards flanked him. A third hung back, phone pressed to his ear, speaking fast and low in Korean. Jae-hwan stopped 6 feet from the SUV. He looked at it. Then he looked down, toward the ground, toward the space beneath the chassis, where Nia was still locked in position, still holding, still bleeding. He couldn't see her, not from where he stood, but he knew she was there. "Bring her out," he said. His voice was quiet, not soft. Quiet the way a blade was quiet before it opened something. The 2 guards moved. They dropped low. Nia saw their faces appear under the chassis. Both of them, weapons drawn, eyes locked on her. One of them grabbed her ankle. She didn't flinch. She couldn't. If her hands moved even a fraction, the wires would separate, the circuit would break, and the anti-tamper timer would finish what it started. "I can't let go," she said. First words she had spoken in over 20 minutes. Her voice came out rough, stripped raw by the cold and the waiting. "If I let go, this thing blows." The guard holding her ankle tightened his grip. He looked back at Jae-hwan. Something passed between them, fast and wordless, the kind of communication that only came from years of knowing someone's mind. Jae-hwan crouched, set his coffee cup down on the gravel. Neat, precise. Like he was about to inspect something at a market, not stare at a woman holding a bomb together with her bare hands. "How long have you been under there?" he asked. "Long enough?" "How long? 20 minutes? Maybe more." A silence landed between them, not empty, heavy. Jae-hwan's eyes moved from her face to her hands, and something flickered across his expression. Not fear, not pity. Something closer to calculation. "The device," he said. "You know what it is?" It wasn't a question. "Pressure plate explosive," Nia said. "Wired to the ignition. I cut the red wire. That triggered the anti-tamper. There's a secondary timer running. I don't know how much time is left. The 2 wires I'm holding are the only thing keeping the circuit from completing." Jae-hwan didn't react, didn't blink, didn't look surprised by any of it. He just listened, the way someone listened when the information they were hearing was confirming something they had already suspected. "You know a lot about bombs for a gardener," he said. Nia held his gaze, said nothing. The third guard, the one on the phone, stepped forward. He leaned down and whispered something in Korean, urgent, sharp. Jae-hwan's jaw moved, just barely, a single muscle tightening beneath the skin. Then he stood, turned to the guards, and said one word, "Check the engine." The order moved through the team like electricity. One guard pulled out a device Nia had never seen before, small, handheld, pointed it at the bomb. A scan. The screen lit up, and the guard's face drained of color in less than a second. He turned to Jae-hwan and spoke rapidly, a stream of Korean that Nia couldn't follow, but she didn't need to. She could read the fear on his face well enough. Jae-hwan listened, nodded once. Then he looked back down at Nia, still on the ground, still holding, still bleeding, and something in his eyes shifted. The calculation was gone. What replaced it was harder to name, sharper. "You didn't plant this," he said, quiet, almost to himself. Nia said nothing, but they both knew the answer. They didn't help her up. They pulled her out. 2 hands locked around her wrists and dragged her sideways across the gravel, fast and rough, and the moment her fingers separated from the wires, the world held its breath. 1 second. 2. The device stayed silent. The anti-tamper timer, whatever was left of it, didn't finish. Nia didn't know why. She didn't have time to think about why, because the moment her back hit the ground, 3 guards were on top of her, knees pressing into her chest, a weapon barrel cold and hard against the side of her neck. "Hands! Now! Show them." She showed them, palms up, raw, split open along the creases where the wires had burned through skin. Blood had dried black in the lines of her fingers. Fresh blood was still moving, slow and bright, from 2 cuts that went deep. No one looked at the cuts. They were looking at her hands like they were evidence. "She did this," one of the guards said. Korean accent, broken English, voice shaking with something between anger and fear. "She was under the car. She touched the device. She planted it." Jae-hwan said nothing. He was standing 3 feet away, arms crossed, watching Nia on the ground the way a man watched something he was still deciding about. "I didn't plan it," Nia said. Her voice was flat, steady, the kind of steady that came from practice, not from calm. "You were under the car," the guard said, "before anyone saw you, before anyone knew you were there, alone, with your hands on the bomb. I found it, and we are supposed to believe that." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation dressed in words, and everyone on that gravel knew it. Nia looked up at Jae-hwan. He looked back. His face told her nothing. "Tie her," he said. The guards moved fast, zip ties around her wrists, tight enough to bite into the cuts that were already open. Nia didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't give them anything. She had learned a long time ago that showing pain to people who wanted to see it was the fastest way to lose control of a room. They pulled her to her feet. She stood, steadied, looked at Jae-hwan again. "Check the device," she said, "before you decide what I am." Jae-hwan held her gaze for a beat longer than was comfortable. Then he turned to the guard with the handheld scanner, the one who had gone pale minutes earlier, the one whose hands were still not completely still. "Show me," Jae-hwan said. The guard stepped forward, held up the scanner. The screen was still lit, data frozen on the last scan. Jae-hwan leaned in. "Read it." His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. Something deep and cold and fast, like a door slamming shut in a room no one else could see. He straightened, looked at the screen for 1 more second, then looked at Nia, then looked at the house. "Get Soo-yun," he said. Not loud, not urgent, the kind of quiet that made everyone in earshot go still. "Now." The guards exchanged a glance. One of them broke into a jog toward the back door. Jae-hwan didn't move, didn't look at Nia again. He was staring at the scanner in the guard's hand, like it had just told him something he couldn't unhear. Nia watched him. She didn't know what the scanner had shown. She didn't need to. She could read it in the way his shoulders had shifted, barely, almost invisible, the way a man's body changed when the threat in the room stopped being outside and started being inside. Someone in this house had built that bomb, and Jae-hwan already knew who. The back door opened. A man appeared in the doorway, tall, sharp-faced, dressed like someone who had been awake for hours already, not someone who had just been woken up. He moved down the stone steps with a calm that didn't match the situation, hands in his pockets, a faint expression on his face that Nia couldn't name from this distance, but didn't like. Jae-hwan turned to face him. The 2 men looked at each other across the gravel, and the air between them changed, not warmer, not colder, tighter, the way air tightened before something broke. "Brother," Jae-hwan said. Soo-yun smiled. It was small, controlled, the kind of smile that lived on the face of someone who had already rehearsed this moment in his head and was now watching it play out exactly the way he had planned. He walked down the last step onto the gravel, hands still in his pockets, and stopped 5 feet from Jae-hwan. Not too close, not too far. The distance of someone who understood exactly how much space power needed. "You look tense," Soo-yun said, in Korean. Nia caught the tone more than the words. Light. Almost amused. Jae-hwan didn't answer. He turned to the guard holding the scanner and held out his hand. The guard placed it in his palm without a word. Jae-hwan looked at the screen one more time. Then he turned the device around and held it up so Soo-yoon could see. Soo-yoon's smile didn't move, but his hands came out of his pockets. "That's interesting," he said. Still calm, still light, like he was looking at something mildly surprising at a dinner party, not at evidence that had just been pulled from a bomb under his brother's car. "Is it?" Jae-hwan said. Not a question. "I've never seen that signature before," Soo-yoon said. He tilted his head, studied the screen, reached toward the scanner like he wanted a closer look. Jae-hwan pulled it back. One sharp movement, the first real movement he had made since this started. The gravel went quiet. Nia watched from where the guards had stationed her, zip ties still locked around her bleeding wrists, and she felt something shift in the air. The false calm that Soo-yoon was wearing, it wasn't holding the way it had been. There was a crack in it now, thin, almost invisible, but there, like glass that had been struck and hadn't fallen yet. "The prototype signature belongs to your division," Jae-hwan said. Quiet, flat, each word placed down like a card on a table. "Your lab, your encryption key, your name." Soo-yoon said nothing. "Your name," Jae-hwan repeated. The silence that followed was the kind that had weight. It pressed against everything. The guards, the gravel, the amber light that was finally starting to fade as the sun came up. Nia could hear her own breathing, could hear the blood moving through the cuts on her hands. Soo-yoon broke it first. "Hyung," he said. A word Nia had heard before. Older brother. Respectful. Warm even. But the way Soo-yoon said it now stripped all the warmth out and left something else underneath. Something that had been hiding there for a long time. "You know me better than that. I know you well enough," Jae-hwan said. "That is the problem." Soo-yoon's jaw tightened, just barely. The crack in the glass was spreading. "Someone is using my lab," Soo-yoon said. "Someone with access I didn't authorize. You want to drag me out here in front of your guards and your gardener and accuse me, or do you want to find out who actually did this?" It was smooth, practiced. The redirect of someone who had spent years in rooms full of dangerous people and had learned exactly how to turn suspicion into sympathy without ever sounding defensive. Nia had seen men like this before, in briefing rooms, in debriefs, in the corridors of military buildings where the most dangerous people wore the cleanest uniforms. She knew what Soo-yoon was doing. She didn't think Jae-hwan did. Jae-hwan studied his brother's face for a long time. The kind of long that made the guards uncomfortable. One of them shifted his weight. Another cleared his throat. Nia watched Jae-hwan's eyes scanning, reading, trying to find the lie the way a man tried to find a crack in a wall that had no cracks. Then he exhaled, nodded once. "Fine," he said. "We go inside. We look at your lab. We find out who used your encryption." Soo-yoon smiled again, wider this time. Relief, gratitude, brotherhood. Nia saw it and her stomach dropped, because she had seen that smile before too, on men who had just won something they weren't supposed to win, on men who had just convinced the room that the danger was somewhere else, when it was standing right in front of them the whole time. Jae-hwan turned toward the house, started walking. The guards moved with him, two falling into step, one staying behind to watch Nia. Soo-yoon fell into place beside his brother, close, natural, the way brothers walked. Just before he passed Nia, he slowed, didn't stop, didn't turn his head, but his eyes moved just for a second, sliding sideways until they found hers. And in that look, Nia saw everything she needed to see. He knew exactly what she was. They put her in a room with no windows, not a cell, nothing that obvious, a study. Dark wood walls, leather chairs, bookshelves that had never been touched. the kind of room that existed in houses like this, not for reading, but for controlling. A single guard stood by the door, arms crossed, face blank. Nia sat in a chair across from him, zip ties still on, hands in her lap, bleeding quietly onto the dark wood of the armrest. She didn't think about the pain. She thought about Soo-Yoon's eyes. He had seen something in her. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. The kind of look a predator gave something it had already categorized. Nia knew that look because she had worn it herself, years ago, in rooms colder and darker than this one, when her job was to walk into a space and decide in 3 seconds who was dangerous and who was not. Soo-Yoon had decided about her in less than 1, which meant he had already been watching her. Before this morning, before the bomb, before she ever crawled under that car. The door opened. Jae-hwan walked in alone. No guards behind him, no Soo-Yoon. He closed the door himself, which surprised her. Men like Jae-hwan didn't close their own doors. He stood for a moment, looking at her hands, at the blood that had soaked into the wood, at the zip ties cutting into already ruined skin. Something moved across his face, not pity, closer to anger, but not aimed at her. He pulled a chair forward, sat. Close enough that she could see the details of his face clearly for the first time. The scar along his left jaw, old, healed badly. The eyes, dark, still, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and had stopped reacting to most of it. He held up a tablet, turned the screen toward her. A file, military, official seal at the top. A photograph, younger, sharper, but unmistakably her. Nia's breath caught in her chest and stayed there. Captain Nia Okafor, Jae-hwan read. His voice was flat. No inflection. Reading facts, not guessing. Former military engineer, specialist in explosive ordnance disposal, dishonorably discharged 14 months ago. He stopped reading. Looked at her over the edge of the tablet. Nia said nothing. There was nothing to say that would make this better. "You didn't just find a bomb this morning," Jae-hwan said. "You dismantled one, with your hands, in under a minute, while holding 2 wires together to prevent a secondary detonation." He tilted the tablet slightly. "That is not something a gardener learns." The room was very quiet. The guard by the door had gone still, listening. "Who gave you this file?" Nia asked. Jae-hwan didn't answer. He set the tablet down on the table between them, face up, her photograph still glowing on the screen. 14 months, he said. "That is how long you have been on my estate. Pruning hedges, trimming, roses, living in the small house by the east wall." He leaned forward. 14 months and no one checked you. No one questioned you. No one looked twice at the black gardener. "That was the point," Nia said. Quiet, not defensive, just true. "The point," Jae-hwan repeated, and now something shifted in his voice. Not anger, something sharper. "You were hiding." Nia held his gaze. The zip ties pressed into her wrists. The cuts on her hands throbbed in time with her heartbeat. "Yes," she said. "From who?" The question sat in the air between them. Nia knew the answer. She'd been carrying it for 14 months like a stone in her chest. The weight of it had shaped everything, every decision, every morning at 4:58, every hedge she trimmed, and every shadow she avoided. But saying it out loud, in this room, in front of this man, meant the hiding was over. Jae-hwan watched her face. He was patient, unnervingly so. The kind of patient that came from knowing he would get the answer, eventually, and was content to wait. The door opened. Both of them turned. Soo-Yoon stood in the doorway. His eyes went to the tablet on the table, to Nia's photograph on the screen, to Jae-hwan's face, and something in his expression changed so fast and so completely that Nia almost missed it. The smooth calm cracked wide open for 1 second, just one, and underneath it was something cold and calculating and very, very afraid. Then the mask was back, perfectly in place, as if it had never moved. Hyung, Soo-yun said, we need to talk, now. Jae-hwan didn't take his eyes off Nia. Yes, he said, we do. Soo-yun closed the door behind him, not gently. The click of it was sharp, final, like a lock engaging. He didn't sit. He stood near the bookshelf, one hand resting on the edge of it, fingers spread, the way someone stood when they needed something solid to hold onto but didn't want anyone to see it. Whatever she told you, Soo-yun said, nodding toward Nia. It isn't true. I haven't asked her anything yet, Jae-hwan said. A beat of silence. Soo-yun's fingers tightened on the shelf, just barely. Then don't, he said. Hyung, listen to me. This woman is not who she appears to be. The file on that tablet is real, yes, but the story behind it is not something you want in this house. Jae-hwan picked up the tablet, looked at it, set it back down. His movements were slow, deliberate, the kind of slowness that wasn't calm, but control. Then tell me the story, he said. Soo-yun looked at Nia, a long look, the kind that was meant to communicate something, a warning, a threat, something wordless and heavy that passed between them like smoke. Nia met it without blinking. She was discharged for blowing the whistle on a corrupt general, Soo-yun said. Turning back to Jae-hwan, his voice had shifted, softer now, concerned, brotherhood wrapped in worry. General Kyung-ho Park, he was running illegal arms operations through the military. She reported it. They buried it. They discharged her instead, and now Park is looking for her. The room stayed quiet for 3 seconds. Then Jae-hwan said, How do you know about General Park? The question landed like a slap. Nia saw it hit, saw the way Soo-yun's body absorbed it, the slight lean backward, the recalculation behind his eyes that happened in less than a heartbeat. Because Park is a problem for us, Soo-yun said. Smooth, fast, too fast. He's been making contact, wanting to expand, wanting connections in our network. He is not a problem, Jae-hwan said, quiet, final. He is a partner. The word dropped into the room like a stone into still water. Nia watched it land, watched the ripples move across Soo-yun's face, watched Jae-hwan's expression stay exactly the same, which meant he already knew what he had just said and what it meant, and was watching to see how his brother reacted to hearing it out loud. Partner, Soo-yun repeated, carefully. Silent partner, Jae-hwan said. In the syndicate, in the arms division. In the money that moves through the shell companies you built for me 3 years ago. He tilted his head. Did you think I didn't know? Soo-yun said nothing. The mask was still on his face, but it was doing less work now. The cracks were spreading underneath it, thin lines running through the calm like fault lines through stone. Jae-hwan stood, picked up the tablet, walked to where Soo-yun stood by the bookshelf and held the screen up so his brother could see it clearly. Nia's photograph. Captain Nia Okafor, military engineer, explosive ordnance disposal specialist. Park has been looking for her for 14 months, Jae-hwan said. She has been here, in my house, on my estate, for 14 months. He let that sit. Let it breathe. And today, a bomb built with your encryption, your lab signature, your prototype, appears under my car. The same morning, she is under that car. He turned the tablet back toward himself, looked at the screen. Tell me, Soo-yun, what am I supposed to think? The silence that followed was different from the ones before. This one had teeth. It pressed against the walls and the floor and the dark wood furniture, and the woman sitting in the chair with zip ties around her bleeding wrists. Every person in that room was breathing, but no one was willing to be the first to move. Soo-yun's hand left the bookshelf. He straightened, rolled his shoulders back, and when he spoke, the softness was gone. The concern was gone. The brotherhood was gone. What was left underneath all of it was something Nia recognized immediately, the voice of someone who had stopped pretending. She is the problem, Soo-yun said, flat, direct. Looking at Nia now, not at Jae-hwan. Park wants her, I want her gone, and you, Hyung, are standing here protecting a woman you met 14 months ago who lied to you every single day she breathed air on your property. He took one step toward Nia. The guard by the door shifted. Cut her loose, Soo-yun said. Hand her over, end this before Park decides to come looking himself, because if he comes here, if he finds out she has been hiding under your roof this whole time, it won't be her he comes for. He let that land. It will be you. Jae-hwan didn't move, didn't look at Nia, didn't look at Soo-yun. He looked at the tablet in his hand, at the photograph of a woman who had saved his life 6 hours ago, and Nia watched his face for the thing she needed to see. She didn't find it. Not yet. Jae-hwan set the tablet down, slowly, face down this time. Nia's photograph disappearing against the dark wood like it was being swallowed. He straightened, looked at Soo-yun, looked at the guard, looked at Nia, finally, properly, the way he had looked at the bomb that morning, scanning, measuring, deciding. Leave us, he said. The guard moved first, quick, practiced. He was at the door and through it before Soo-yun had opened his mouth to argue. Soo-yun's jaw tightened. He looked at Jae-hwan like a man who had just been told the ground beneath him was thinner than he thought. Hyung, this is not the time to leave, Jae-hwan said. One word, no movement, no raised voice. Soo-yun left. The door closed. The room shrank. It was just the two of them now. Jae-hwan standing, Nia sitting, blood drying on her hands, the silence between them thick enough to cut. Jae-hwan reached into his coat, pulled out a knife, small, folding. He crossed the space between them in 2 steps, and Nia's body tensed, every muscle pulling tight, years of training firing before her mind could catch up. He crouched, took her wrists, and cut the zip ties. The relief was immediate and violent. Blood rushed back into her fingers. The cuts on her palms screamed open again. She pressed them against her thighs, hard to stop the bleeding, and looked up at him. He was already watching her. Talk, he said. So she did. Not everything. Not yet. Just enough. She told him about the discharge, about the report she had filed, about the way the military had buried it overnight, sealed the records, and turned the woman who had done the right thing into the woman who had done the worst thing. She told him about the 14 months on his estate, about why she had chosen it, about the walls and the cameras and the guards, and the fact that no one, not the government, not Park, not anyone who was looking for her, would ever think to look for a disgraced military engineer in the garden of a Korean mafia boss. She told him that, and she watched his face, and she waited for the thing that always came next, the disgust, the suspicion, the moment someone decided she was too dangerous to keep close. Jae-hwan listened without interrupting, without moving, without changing his expression. When she finished, the room stayed quiet for a long time. Then he said, Park. One word. Nia nodded. He is the general you reported. Yes. He is the silent partner in my syndicate. Yes. Jae-hwan's face did something then that Nia had not seen it do before. Not anger, not calculation. Something rawer. Something that looked like a man who had just realized he had been sleeping next to a snake, and the snake had been awake the whole time. How long have you known? He asked. About Park. About him being connected to me. Nia held his gaze. Since the 3rd week, she said. The words landed and stayed. Jae-hwan absorbed them the way he absorbed everything, quietly, completely, letting them settle into whatever place inside him they needed to go. You have known for over a year, he said, that the man who wants you dead is inside my organization, and you stayed. Yes. Why? The question was simple. The answer was not. Nia looked at her hands, at the cuts, at the blood that had gone dark and sticky in the creases of her skin. She thought about the morning, about the oil drop on the gravel, about crawling under that car, knowing what she might find and going anyway, because you were the only person he couldn't reach, she said. And because, if he ever moved against you, I would see it coming before anyone else in this house. Jae-hwan looked at her for a long time, long enough for the light in the room to shift. The sun was up now, fully, cutting through the small crack beneath the door in a thin, bright line that split the dark floor in two. And this morning, he said, the bomb. His move, Nia said, through Soo-yun, or using Soo-yun. I don't know which yet. Neither do I. It was the first time Jae-hwan had admitted to not knowing something. Nia heard the weight of it, the cost of saying it out loud, and she understood in that moment that this man did not share uncertainty easily. He stood, walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the handle, didn't turn around. If I walk out of this room, he said, and I find out that anything you just told me is a lie, you will not get another chance to speak. He opened the door. Outside, in the hallway, 3 guards stood waiting, and behind them, standing with his arms crossed and his face carefully, deliberately blank, was Soo-yun, watching. Soo-yun didn't move when Jae-hwan stepped into the hallway. He stayed where he was, back against the wall, arms still crossed, eyes moving from his brother's face to the open door behind him, where Nia sat, free now, zip ties gone, hands raw and bloody in her lap. Something passed through Soo-yun's expression, quick, controlled, but Nia caught it from where she was sitting. He hadn't expected her to still be talking. Jae-hwan walked past him without a word, didn't slow down, didn't look sideways. He moved down the hallway with the same deliberate pace he had used on the gravel that morning, and the guards fell into step behind him like water following gravity. Soo-yun pushed off the wall, followed. Nia stood. Her legs felt unsteady, not from fear, from hours of holding still, from the cold gravel still living in her bones. She stepped into the hallway. The guard closest to her didn't stop her, didn't touch her, just watched her with an expression that had changed since that morning. Not warmer, uncertain, like he was trying to figure out which version of her was the real one. She followed the others. The hallway opened into a larger space, a corridor that ran the length of the house, marble floors, dark walls, the kind of architecture designed to make people feel small. At the far end, a door, steel reinforced, keypad lock, the kind of door that existed in houses like this, not for storage but for secrets. Jae-hwan stopped in front of it, turned, looked at Soo-yun. "Open it," he said. Soo-yun's mask flickered, just once. Then he stepped forward, pulled a keycard from his pocket, and held it against the pad. The lock clicked. The door opened. Inside was a lab, clean, bright, white surfaces and glass panels and screens that hummed with quiet light. The tech division. Soo-yun's world, his territory, the place where everything in this syndicate that required brains, instead of bullets, was designed and built and tested. Jae-hwan walked in first, moved slowly through the space, touching nothing, looking at everything. His eyes moved across the workstations, the equipment, the screen still glowing with data from whatever had been running before dawn. Then he stopped. In the center of the lab, on a steel table under a single focus light, sat the device. The bomb. Someone had brought it in from the SUV, disarmed carefully, laid out on the table like a specimen. Silver casing. The wires Nia had held still visible, stripped and cut. The pressure plate disconnected, the anti-tamper chip dark and dead. Jae-hwan looked at it, looked at Soo-yun. "Yours," he said. Not a question anymore. Soo-yun stepped forward, looked at the device, looked at the screens, looked at the data scrolling across the nearest panel. Timestamps and code signatures and encryption keys that Nia couldn't read but could see meant something, because Soo-yun's face changed when his eyes hit them. The mask cracked, not a little this time, wide, deep. The calm split open, and underneath it was something urgent and frightened and angry all at once. Soo-Yun's hand shot out and grabbed for the nearest screen, fingers moving fast, trying to close something, delete something, hide something. Jae-hwan caught his wrist, one hand, fast, firm, the way someone grabbed something they had been waiting to grab. Soo-Yun froze. His body went rigid. His eyes stayed locked on the screen, on whatever was still showing there, and Nia moved. She stepped forward around the steel table until she could see what Soo-Yun had been trying to erase, a communication log, encrypted. But the encryption had been partially stripped, maybe by the scanner the guards had used earlier, maybe by something else. Lines of text, timestamps, names, most of it in Korean, but one name sat at the top of every thread, repeated over and over, clear and unmistakable. Park. General Kyung-ho Park. The conversations ran back months, dozens of them, planning, coordinating. The bomb was mentioned twice, in language that was clinical and precise, the way someone discussed logistics, not the way someone described a crime. Delivery dates, specifications, timing. Soo-Yun had not been framed, he had built it. Jae-hwan read the screen, read it slowly, carefully, the way he read everything, letting each line settle before moving to the next. When he finished, he didn't look at Nia, didn't look at the bomb on the table. He looked at Soo-Yun, at his brother, at the man who shared his blood and his name and had spent the last 14 months planning to end him. "How long?" Jae-hwan said. Soo-Yun didn't answer. His wrist was still locked in Jae-hwan's grip. His face had gone blank. Not calm, empty. The way a face went when everything behind it had been stripped away and there was nothing left to hide. "How long, Soo-Yun?" "Since Park approached me," Soo-Yun said. His voice was different now, flat, hollow. The performance was finished. 2 years. 2 years. Nia watched Jae-hwan absorb it, watched the way his body stayed perfectly still while something behind his eyes moved like water, finding a crack in stone. 2 years. His own brother. 2 years of sitting at the same table, breathing the same air, and every single day Soo-Yun had been counting down to this morning. Jae-hwan released his brother's wrist, stepped back, put distance between them. Then he turned to the guards. "Chains," he said. The word was quiet, almost gentle, but the guards moved like they had been struck by lightning. 2 of them were on Soo-Yun before he could breathe, arms locked, a third coming through the lab door with iron restraints that were old and heavy and looked like they had been used before. Soo-Yun didn't fight, didn't scream, didn't beg. He looked at Nia. One last look, long, burning. The kind of look that was a promise, not a goodbye. It said, "I am not finished." It said, "This is not over." It said, "You have no idea what is still coming." Then the chains went on, and they dragged him out. The house was quiet after they took him. Not peaceful, quiet the way a battlefield was quiet after the last shot had been fired. Everything still smoking, everything still bleeding. The kind of quiet that wasn't silence, but the absence of the thing that had been making noise, and the space it left behind was worse than the noise ever was. Nia stood in the lab, alone. The guards had gone with Soo-Yun. Jae-hwan had followed, said nothing to her before he left, just walked out with his hands at his sides and his face closed like a door she wasn't invited through. She didn't follow. She stayed where she was, next to the steel table, looking at the bomb that had started all of this, the device that had almost killed a man, the device that had almost killed her. Her hands were still bleeding. She looked at them. The cuts had reopened when the zip ties came off, and they hadn't stopped since. The blood was bright and slow, dripping onto the white lab floor in a pattern that looked almost deliberate. She watched it fall for a moment. Then she turned off the light above the table and walked out of the lab and into the corridor and kept walking until she found the garden. The sun was fully up now, harsh and white and indifferent to everything that had happened in the last 6 hours. The hedges she pruned every morning stood in their perfect rows, green and still, and exactly where she had left them yesterday. The roses by the east wall were open. The air smelled like wet earth and morning and something sweet she had never been able to name. Nia sat on the stone bench by the fountain, the one she sat on every morning after she finished pruning, before the house woke up, before anyone saw her, her place, her silence. The one small piece of the world that belonged to no one but her. She sat there, and she breathed, and she waited. She didn't know what she was waiting for. Maybe she did. Maybe she had known since the moment Jay Juan cut the zip ties and looked at her the way no one had looked at her in 14 months, like she was a person, not a threat, not a liability, not a problem to be solved or a body to be handed over. A person. The footsteps came 20 minutes later. Slow, deliberate. The click of expensive shoes on stone. Nia didn't turn around. She already knew. She had memorized the sound of those footsteps that morning on the gravel, had filed them away the way she filed away everything that mattered, instinctively, without thinking. Jay Juan sat beside her on the bench, not close, not far. The same distance he had kept on the gravel, the distance of someone who was still deciding something. He didn't speak right away. He looked at the garden, at the hedges and the roses and the fountain and the way the sunlight was hitting the water and breaking into 1,000 small, bright pieces. He looked at it the way someone looked at something they had owned for years and were seeing properly for the first time. "You did this," he said. Not a question, a statement, looking at the garden. "Yes." "Every day for 14 months. "Yes." He nodded. Slowly, like he was fitting something together inside his head, something that had been out of place for a long time and was only now sliding into where it was supposed to go. "Park is being handled," he said. His voice was different now. The flatness was gone. The control was gone. What was underneath was quieter than anything Nia had heard from him before, not soft, tired. The kind of tired that came from a man who had just discovered that the two people closest to him had both been lying, and one of them had been trying to kill him, and the other had been trying to save him, and he hadn't known the difference until a bomb almost went off. "How?" Nia asked. One word. She didn't need to say more. "The way I handle everything," Jay Juan said. "Quietly, completely. By morning, he will not be a general anymore. He will not be a partner anymore. He will not be anything at all." Nia looked at him, looked at the side of his face, the old scar along his jaw, the lines around his eyes that spoke of years she would never fully know. She believed him, not because he said it with confidence, because he said it the way someone stated a fact. The sky is blue. The sun will set. Park will disappear. "Your record," Jay Juan said. He turned to face her now, properly. "The discharge, the report you made, all of it, I can clean it all the way. You would not be a captain anymore. You would not be a whistleblower anymore. You would not be someone the government was looking for." He paused. "You would just be Nia." The words hit something deep and old and bruised inside her chest, something she had buried 14 months ago when she crawled into this garden and made herself small and invisible and safe. The dream of being no one, of being ordinary, of walking into a room without checking the exits first. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Jay Juan looked at the garden again, at the hedges she had shaped with her own hands, at the roses she had fed and pruned and coaxed into blooming in soil that had been dead when she arrived. "You turned this place into something," he said, quiet, almost to himself. "I have lived here for 9 years. I never noticed." A silence settled between them, but it was a different silence than the ones before. No teeth, no weight, no pressure. Just two people sitting in the sun in a garden that one of them had built and the other was finally seeing, and the morning moving forward the way mornings did, without caring what had happened in it. 6 months passed the way water passed, slowly at first, then all at once. The estate changed, not dramatically, not in ways anyone outside the walls would ever notice, but inside, things shifted. The security cameras were still there, but fewer of them pointed at the garden. The guards still. Rotated, but their schedules were looser now, less rigid, like something that had been clenched for years had finally let go. The armored SUV was gone. Sold or destroyed or buried somewhere? Nia never asked. In its place, parked on the gravel where the bomb had been found, sat a vintage convertible. Cream-colored, open top. The kind of car that existed not for protection but for movement, for going somewhere instead of hiding from something. Nia's hands had healed. The cuts had closed into thin white lines that she could still feel when she pressed them together, but could no longer see unless the light hit them a certain way. She still gardened, every morning. Still arrived at 4:58. But the hedges were not all she tended now. The roses had spread. New beds had appeared along the east wall and the south path and the stretch of gravel near the fountain. The garden had grown the way gardens grew when someone loved them, quietly, persistently, without being asked. On a morning in late spring, when the air was warm and the roses were open and the sun was climbing slow and gold over the east wall, Nia walked out of the small house by the garden and stopped. Jae-hwan was in the convertible, already there, engine off. One arm resting on the open window, relaxed in a way she had never seen him relaxed before. He was watching her, and when she met his eyes, he didn't look away, didn't calculate, didn't measure. He just looked. On her hand, catching the morning light, a diamond sat on her finger. Large. Brilliant. The kind of stone that didn't announce itself, but couldn't be ignored. It caught the sun and broke it into pieces, the same way the fountain did, the same way the garden did, turning one thing into 1,000 smaller, brighter things. Nia walked toward the car, toward him. She didn't hurry. There was no reason to hurry anymore. She opened the door and sat down beside him. The leather was warm from the sun. The convertible smelled like old wood and open air and something underneath it all that was starting, slowly, to feel like home. Jae-hwan didn't start the engine. Not yet. He turned to her, and his face was open in a way it had never been in that dark study, or on that cold gravel, or in any of the rooms where decisions had been made about her life without her permission. He looked at her the way someone looked at something they had almost lost and had spent every day since making sure they wouldn't lose again. "You saved my life at dawn," he said, quiet, steady, the way he said everything that mattered. "I am giving you the rest of my days." Nia looked at him. At the garden behind them, the one she had built from dead soil and patience and 14 months of silence. At the diamond on her hand. At the convertible that was not a fortress, but a promise. She smiled. Small. Real. The first one that had nothing behind it but the feeling of being exactly where she was supposed to be. Jae-hwan started the engine, and they drove.